Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, 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 everyone. Today we have a pretty good show today. This will be the last free tutoring session before the school year. If you would like to do a tutoring session with me, it's just $10 per hour. And that would be the only thing that I would say in terms of housekeepings or stream operations. I would like to welcome to the stream my good friend, the Wise Wolf. Allow me to pull up his intro. One second. Welcome aboard, Wise Wolf.
Hello there.
General Kenobi, you are a bold one.
Thank you. I think is I don't like when people say the first part but don't finish the rest of the line. It's like, you know the rest, you know the last 4 words. Say it.
Retracts gun. Okay. Alrighty. We have one other lovely guest. Welcome to the stream.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I don't have my usual avatar. I'm not on my computer right now because the Ethernet is being, ick.
Either way, at least you're here.
Yeah.
Let me just go grab my notes right quick.
I'll be right back, too. I've got something on the stove.
Got it. I don't hear any crickets, but they're going off.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Well, ultimately, the time is now yours. Ask me any questions you want. If you want, please tell us how you got into writing in the first place, why you like it, and like what have been like your primary inspirations.
Okay, how I got into writing was actually all the way back. I've been reading fanfics for about up to 7 years at this point, but I've only started. But I decided to begin my writing all the way back in late 2018. My first published story, my first story that I made was all the way in April 2019.
Nice.
Yeah. And up to this point, I've been writing for up to a year, I guess. So far, the first thing that I wanted to write was a Ruby fanfic. Since at the time I was still big on it, just not as much as I used to. Now it's like I don't think I can even put myself to physically make one, if I can think of one. Now just, well, I have these things I like, I might as well go with that. And so now it's like the biggest. In my hands, I hold a notebook to which I'm going to do. It's the one story I think I really, really would like to write eventually. It's the one. It goes against what I usually do, which is just write it and figure it out as I go along.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like I'm drawing up outlines. I know how to end the story, but right now I think the biggest issue I'm having is the actual world and the magic.
Mm-hmm.
I know where I want to take the characters. Well, some of the characters I do know where I want to take. And I know how, and some of their stories, how to complete their stories, and if I feel that there should be more to tell, not to to either continue in the main story if I think it's important enough for the main story, or after I complete the story, have a side story that's set afterwards, and then cover what they do, get up to in that. Because the epilogue, technically, I set in a time skip 5 to 6 years later after the ending of the final chapter. So I set the side stories in between the 5 to 6 year gap.
Okay.
I remember that you brought up, I think last week when we talked, where I think it was Nick that brought up the idea of high elves being in decline. And how Drake pointed out that high elves being in decline is a very common thing in fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a very similar thing happen. It's less like a decline and more like a stagnation.
I see.
Yeah. It's especially since the stagnation in mine is because they have a lack of actual proper leadership. Like, not leadership that are competent, but more or less a united goal. They are now less of a kingdom and more like noble houses bickering over who gets to be the next king, or rather ruler of the high elves. And I'm using one of the characters that has been confirmed that is a high elf. In fact, I think that she's pretty much already. I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but I'm pretty sure Varia is in fact elven princess. Like, she is of actual nobility.
Okay.
So that's like her story. She pretty much was like, okay, I see where the high elf. Essentially, I used a bit of the established backstory she had that she left her home because she wanted to see the rest of the world. I also decided to add in a part where it's like, well, I'm just tired of how you pretty much don't do anything but argue over who gets to lead us until he's eventually stabbed in the back. The idea for her character, where I want to take her, is someplace in Act 2, with I introduced the Dark Elves and the subsequent, well, Dark Elves got a die arc. Or she pretty much sallies back to her home to try and get support, and obviously none of the mobile houses are willing to help her, so she's just like, fine. She calls upon the people who have sworn loyalty to her, what Lil soldiers are willing to join her. And then after the Dark Elves are subsequently well, the Dark Elves are still there, but the majority of them, they've been weakened. And afterwards, saying in Act 3, before it comes in the final big major threat, essentially the army to bring about the end of all life. But still, like the idea is that she then goes back, but she knows that they really ain't noble. But she knows that they just won't stay together, because then they'll subsequently try to tear each other apart. And so she decides the biggest, the most bold move she can make at that point, and that's claim the throne for herself. Claim that she is by the right of her bloodline of Alf, that the throne is rightfully hers. There's anyone that disagrees with her, let her and whether it be through war or through politics, they will eventually become, and they will join together. And then I have the entire High Elf War for Succession thing happen. The more vocal and the more willing to fight are the more, like some houses and others she recognizes are staying neutral to wait for eventual spots to see who will be the weakest first, and then join the other side, right, to get it over faster, and then worm their way themselves into good graces. And then after she wins, the side story with her is that it's now all about rebuilding and repairing the bridges that she had burnt previously. Because the thing was, she was against it, and it was either she had to force them to unite, or the entire world is destroyed and none of them all die anyways. So then it's all about so it's like this one actually takes place throughout the entire I just want to say up to the first 2 years. First 2 to 3 years at best. Where it's just now her using the knowledge that she has gained from venturing outside of the world to help rebuild the bridges between Elf, between all the houses. Is so that then and the more bloodier years of her reign are looked over smoothly.
Okay.
But then, of course, Dark Elves come back for revenge. Because they are willing to bring out all the stops in order to do so. So they called upon all kinds. They draw upon a lot of manpower and a lot of bestial creatures to help pull this off. And it's not as if they weren't expecting something like this. They've always been known to call upon the most dangerous of creatures. There's even a couple of cases of them using actual minotaurs.
Okay.
Yes, in a case of in a scenario-like situation of that of King Minos and Minotaur in Crete. Only without the part that the wife fucked. That the wife fucked the bull.
There are a couple of different ways I've seen Minotaurs characterized in fiction. Do you have any idea what you're going to do with that?
Well, Minotaurs they're monsters you won't usually run into, but when you do run into, if you aren't prepared to take them on, run as fast as you can. Or go and die.
So, are they cannibals then? Like Wendigos are depicted? Because that's how they started out as.
Yeah, they're cannibals. They eat monsters and they eat humans. Well, they eat anything. They're indiscriminate.
Okay.
Or omnivorous. Well, they're predators essentially.
Yeah. In fact, the main character of the story, he himself has a very early encounter with the Minotaur that he barely survives.
Is he missing any limbs?
Oh no, he's lucky enough to have gone out mostly intact.
So maybe a chunk out of his ear, but that's it.
I need to really think through on the Minotaur part, but I do want that Minotaur to become important. And I mean specifically this Minotaur.
Okay.
You ever heard of Asterios?
Is that the actual name of the Minotaur?
That's actually the name of the Minotaur on Crete, the one that Theseus would slay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
depicted as a red bull.
Yeah, they thought that when Minos was expecting him, he gave him that name, but then when the Minotaur was actually born, they threw him in the they created the labyrinth for him.
and then it was up to Ariadne. And then when Theseus came over to fight the Minotaur, it was Princess Ariadne who gave him a thread that guided them through the labyrinth, to which then he would slay the Minotaur.
Mm-hmm.
But you will run into that Minotaur again, and you were just lucky that he came out the way he did. Most others, they don't get to share the same tale. In fact, when he runs into the elf character, Lefia, and he tells her about the Minotaur, she's like, the gods must truly have been in your favor.
Okay.
The characters even comment on the fact that it's uncanny that he got out as intact as he did.
Okay.
But that's an actual moment of that they actually state that whoever was watching you when you ran into him, you better ensure that you don't disrespect him in any specific way. Hello?
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. I know the name from a different source, but
Yeah, I mean, I also know it from a different source. Or it wasn't until I actually looked into the mythology. That's why I asked for some mythology sources so I could then start looking into it. Because I do want to this is kind of like a fanfic for Don Machi, and one of the main characters, well, one of his skills actually is called Argonaut, Baroque Desire. And Theseus would later join them.
yeah, you can learn a lot about mythology from anime because they're really into that.
Yeah, I was
not even knowing even.
Yeah. Like, considering the main character's origins, which I still do relatively keep intact, and according to how it's actually stated and how the context is of it, he essentially is this is exactly what my friend told me. He's essentially Jason. I want you to take a guess.
Jason.
He's like, not exactly like Jason character-wise, but if you actually look into some big parts about him, you see the similarities between him and Jason.
Okay. So you're using Jason's archetype, quote unquote?
Well, yes, maybe no, considering the fact that the one thing I don't really change all that much about him is his personality. It's still pretty much the same because it fits him the most. Think of the most naive. He is a person who wishes to be a hero. And he grew up ideal because his grandfather grew him up, and he read him a lot of heroic stories. One of his favorite being that of the Argonaut, which goes through a different tale introduction, but is still very similar to the actual tale of Theseus. It's the fact the main character is, despite the Argonaut's name, which is literally Argonaut, and King Minos says, "Oh, so you've been yourself into that shit, under that band of fools, huh?" And he's like, "No, I did it because it sounded cool." The thing is that the Argonaut is, in a story, he's a giant fool. In fact, the opposite happens in he has to save Princess Ariadne from the Minotaur. Only he ends up getting saved by her at the end. In this instance, this is an out of character. He was always established to be very weak. What made him special is that no matter what, he always wanted to see everyone smile. Since he didn't want to be a hero that sacrificed a few for the many, essentially Shiro Emiya.
Okay.
Save everyone, even at the cost of yourself.
Okay, so Percy Jackson from the books, I suppose. Is that correct? That like it's kind of like Percy Jackson, like where Percy Jackson, his fatal flaw is that he cannot let any of his friends die.
That's and considering what he actually does later on in the light novels, which is actually what the anime season 3 is going to cover, he is going to betray his own kind. Like he is because he is not willing to betray his ideals to be seen as a hero by the people. And well, go ahead.
No, I didn't say anything.
I was talking
I
about.
didn't say anything either.
Oh, it sounded like you were going to say something.
Okay. So it seems like you got some good character base going right here. So I suppose what would be like your questions in terms of like what is it? In terms of like the world building and the magic.
Okay, the magic is the one I have the biggest. I'm going to have the biggest problem with because number one, Danmachi really doesn't do much with the magic. Like it's there. Like you have acquired magic, you have innate magic. Most magic's acquired, then you have innate magic, and then you have elves who are bound to have magic anyhow. You can only have like you can only have like enough slots for like maybe 3 magical spells. And the longer it takes for you to chant, the more powerful the spell is. Be careful not to use your spell too much, or otherwise you'll suffer from mind down and pass out. And what else? Your spells they're like I don't think you'll see 1 of 2 spells. You'll mostly see. I don't know. I think you will see 1 of 2 spells, but there are unique. That's only for like because mostly minor characters. Major characters do have magic unique to themselves, except for Lefia, whose final spell is the ability to use any elven spell, as long as she knows the incantation for it.
Ah, I see.
Yeah.
Good checks and balances there.
Yeah. I mean, it's a you would say that it's kind of like a hybrid magic thing, I would say. But it's not explored much since it's like that magic exists, but not a lot of characters not a lot of characters have magic. You don't see much of the magic. In fact, there are these weapons called the magic swords, and one of the characters, Welf, he's the last one in his family who is known for making the most powerful of magic swords, who's with a single swing can even evaporate the seas. Because the spirit that gave them the ability to forge their weapons, their Kingdom of Rake, their weapons were used to destroy the Elven Forest, and the spirit got mad. And Welf was like the first one and the last one in his family who can make them. But his thing is he doesn't want to make them. In fact, he despises them. And one part of it is because they always break. Like, they'll break and leave you. But when you need them the most.
Okay. Got some good tension there, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, he only made a magic sword once before Volume 6, and that was just to impress the goddess Hephaestus.
Okay.
I know I said goddess instead of god, but in Danmachi it kind of... Well, gods can look wherever the hell they want to look like. You have to accept some things.
Okay.
Yeah. They also written. Surprisingly, they managed to write the gods for. The main author managed to write the gods for it to be a very questioned person with actual. I think she's close to how I think Ray would actually act. Like she isn't necessarily good, but she doesn't really do good bad things for the sake of a selfless reason. Especially considering what she does in Volume 7, where she destroys the Ishtar familia and actually sends Ishtar back to heaven. Because gods can't die, they only just get sent back to heaven. But she didn't do it because she did it for the good of the city. She didn't do it for the good of anybody. She did it because Ishtar touched something that didn't belong to her, and it belonged to Freya.
Okay.
And it wasn't if Ishtar was a whole nice person either. She's a horrible fucking person.
Okay.
And, essentially, she's in love with the main character for reasons that are known to her and also to us, because by extension she did tell us. It's a soul. It is pure. Like, not pure in the sense it's pure white. I mean, she says that's utterly so pure that it's almost transparent. Which indicates that he's a new person, not a reincarnation of an old person. Like, not a reincarnation of a new life. He's just an entirely new being.
Ah.
Yeah. It's like, it's like, that's interesting until I got into a side story. It's not canon, but I did like the ideas presented, including the big question of, he is a reincarnation. He's just a very weird one.
Okay. Alrighty.
Especially when you consider that him and the person that's the main character of the side story looks so utterly the same that you'd be deceived upon first glance until you get into how they actually act. In some cases, they're the same, and in others, they're polar opposites.
Okay. So it's kind of like a mixing and matching of various different gods that are kind of coming together, that are all in the world at the same time, and people are like reacting to that, or at least like have been reacting to this for a while. Is that correct?
Oh no! At this point, they're pretty much commonplace because they descended to Genkai around, I think, well over 3,000 years ago. Within my fanfiction, they rarely descended, but at that point the story picks up. The gods pretty much all but left Earth, the lower world, and returned to heaven. And so it's more like, however, their spirits remain, and spirits are essentially magical beings. They're right for everything. But if you find a spirit of a god, it is said to grant you great power.
Okay.
Right, the hero Argonaut wielded a sword of lightning called Jupiter.
Okay.
Yep. So I got the idea for names by using one of their other names or an alias in some cases, because one of Freya's alias, because Freya doesn't have an alternate name. She isn't seen in our mythology or in the Norse, but she does have a bunch of aliases that I could use.
Okay.
But I already know the one I want to use. Especially since she's a character anyways in the series, and if you know what one of Freya's names is, you pretty much, when you hear her name, it gives it away anyways. That she probably has some relation to Freya.
Okay.
Also, the roles are very different. You know how in mythology, the gods and goddesses is good at children?
Yeah, demigods and such.
They don't exist. They can't have kids, period.
Okay.
Like, but they do give them some of their blood in order to make them their children, essentially. Essentially, in Danmachi, they go into the dungeon, the They get Excelia, they come back, that Excelia is granted.
Sorry about that. As I said,
That's
my
adorable.
internet is on the fritz right now. Thank you. This is a picture of Liz from
I know
Sword
her.
Art Online as a cat girl.
I know what Liz is. Oh. I do know one, biggest thing. I actually, it's a very unusual one. I had to say, I remember telling us in DN's done that the main character would later go on to wield a sword of flames that essentially is the spirit of Hestia.
Okay.
I hint that the spirit of Hestia is still around. And I used the Roman name for her, since Romans are essentially plagiarized the Greeks in mythology.
Mm-hmm.
And you know her Roman name, right?
I actually can't remember her Roman name. I know most of the others, but I don't remember Hestia's.
The Romans called her Vesta.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. And I decided to. I want you to. I hint at her existing very early on. It's a big foreshadow if you know where to look. But like if you paid attention and I tell you this information that Vesta is walking the lower planes, and you see a character and you see something very odd about her name. That's Vesta.
Okay. All right.
But I do want to have moments where the gods actually, where the deities themselves do communicate to them through a spirit, but only during the times when you bring them to a realm between life and death.
Huh.
But essentially communicating to them when you would need it the most. Kind of like whatever Poseidon does in Percy Jackson. He communicates with Percy to give him guidance when he needs it the most.
Yeah. But and F just died again. Ran out of internet gas.
F's in the chat, guys.
Where did that come from anyway? What's the origin? I hear that all over the place, but what's like the origin?
The origin is from Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. There was a button prompt in the second mission which it said press F to pay respects.
That explains why I've never heard the origin before.
Yep, it goes all the way back to 2014, and ever since then, the most memorable thing about Advanced Warfare was to press F to pay respects.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So kind of, it seems like you have a pretty good, pretty good handle on things. I suppose, how can I best help you to realize your vision? Is the question I'd like to ask.
All right. What I have in mind for the worlds that I need. Okay, the monsters. If you could suggest either a fantasy monster or a mythological monster, or what would it be?
You don't really see chimeras that often.
Aren't the chimeras like some horrific beast monster monstrosity that's part man, part goat, part lion, part bird?
Chimera has the front end of a lion, the legs of a goat, and sometimes even the head of a goat out of its back, and a snake tail.
Oh, so essentially it's like a cousin to the manticore.
Yeah, very much so.
I guess I could include both the manticore and the chimera.
Uh-huh.
Since out of the question, Dark Elves just pretty much revel in using fear tactics. They would use any kind of monster.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, I even bring in the Scylla.
Okay.
Though, though, like most sea monsters, taming it's the most impossible task you could probably do.
Uh-huh.
It's like, good luck.
Yeah, I think, the ghoul in Arabic mythology is oftentimes an underutilized thing the Tarlas in India. Have you heard of the Tarlas?
No.
Basically, they're kind of like vampires, but they like spend time around charnel houses and eat children.
Drake. It's going to be all kinds of things because the source material tends to use any kind. It uses a lot of mythology. It doesn't stop at just Greek, Norse. It also goes all the way to Sumerian, Celtic, Hindu. It even brings in the Shinto. I think they reference Egyptian. So it's not as if you're limited exactly.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's called the Vitala. Let me put the name in the chat.
Vitala.
Yeah, it's a revenant in Hindu mythology. It's comparable to vampires. Basically, it's a reanimated corpse used as vehicles by the spirits for movement. But the corpse does not decay while it's inhabited, and it can leave the body at will.
Well, Crow, that's also true, but at the same time, not really, because I don't think I want to stuff in. I don't think I'm capable of putting in all kinds of. I don't want to force. I don't want to use all the monsters. I do want to put a limit somehow. Zhongzi?
I've never heard of that. Please elaborate. Yeah. Other monsters.
A Zhongxi is a Chinese hopping vampire.
Ah, I see. And like a kitsune is a fox demon.
Well, they also kind of already exist, though not what you may think they would be.
Yeah.
You get they're called they're humanoids with fox features. They're called Renards.
Okay. Oh yeah, I see the reference. Renard the Fox, from British folklore, I believe.
Yeah. And I think there was a reference to Izangi, the god of. Was it Izangi? No, I think it's Inari, who's the god of foxes.
Okay.
In fact, I bring in a
Griffin, I guess. Gargoyle. The old basilisk, like where it's. Have you haven't seen Huntic by any chance?
What's a Huntic?
Huntic is a animated show based around like mythology, but basically what it does is people are trying to find these titans, and they are just kind of monsters from ancient times that have been closed in amulets.
And then along came Zeus.
He hurled his thunderbolt.
I mean, when you consider, if you know who Belle's grandfather is, you're not far off from the Zeus reference.
Mm-hmm. So that's an example of like a hunted creature, like King Basilisk, yeah.
Ophanium. They're a class of angel that's basically burning wheels inside other burning wheels with eyes all over the place. That sounds a bit much. I mean, considering the fact that the end army is pretty much abominate, it's just the warrior of chaos, just scaled up to 10 and backed up by all kinds of all kinds of giants just want to destroy everything. I could probably find a place for that. And if not, then no.
And also like stuff. There's also some weird stuff like this. Like Hunter's got a lot of weird ideas. Is like a spider creature, a lion, a leotar, stuff like that.
So Crow wants to ask if you can come on.
Sure. The link is in the StreamYard barracks. If you want to come on, Crow, the link is there. Go for it.
I do want to. I mean, No, I think Basilisks would be probably much. Gorgons? Gorgons? Actually, that may be on the list. Gorgons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a similar philosophy. They stare right in their eyes and they kill you.
Sometimes it's stone, sometimes I'm with Gorgon. Yeah, it's like stone in a couple places. Like I think in Huntic, both Medusa and King Basilisk, the Titans related to them, both have a what is it? They both have an ability called Stone Gaze. Um, uh, yeah, Drake. Yeah. Like yeah, kind of like how Dracula is able to summon like storms and stuff, and there are limitations to his power, like he can't cross running water and needs people's help to get across the ocean. And
I mean, originally in the story, one of the characters are going to run into the Vampire Coast, which are essentially undead vampire, which are from Warhammer Fantasy and are essentially undead vampire pirates who are pirates. I decided, fuck it. If I'm using mythology, I think I can find some undead sea pirates.
That works.
And coincidentally, I found undead sea pirates from Norse mythology. The undead Neuroflang, the ship that would carry the undead under command of Loki in time of Ragnarok to destroy the gods.
Okay. That is pretty cool. I like it.
Yeah, but their original purpose is to destroy the gods. They are the ones that will help cause Ragnarok.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think like a monster idea is actually the Nemean lion.
The one that Hercules would slay?
Yeah. Yeah, the one with metal with hide so thick that he had to strangle him.
That's the thing. I get for an existence that there have already been heroes that existed, and having the main line might not be. I don't know if I want to keep the. I don't know if I want to use the main line. I'll think about the idea.
Well, you could just. It's just a lion that has. It could be just like a lion that has metallic Alacoma skin.
Okay, Crow can't come on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's the entire. The rising tension thing that's very common in stories?
Yes.
That's essentially what I'm going for. It's like slowly and slowly he faces threats that are either bigger in number or just generally stronger. Since by the time of Act 2, he and the assistance of Lefia, Brat, and Ryu, who they had destroyed an entire orc. They had taken over an orc fortress and killed the head boss of it all. But he makes this the Minotaur in Act 2 or 3. Either way, he faces the Minotaur. I think Act 2 would make. I think I'll do Act 2 since that's also where he gets the sword or Vesta.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I think I may just go with. Here's the thing. It's like I don't want to. Here's the thing. Bell is not the most physically strongest of people. His entire thing is speed and outrunning, then trying to tank hits. I mean, a Goliath pretty much saw fit to demonstrate why you don't do that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a steady build up of threats until eventually the big, okay, fuck it, the world's about to end, let's bring in the army that'll end it.
I see. So it's very much an apocalypse type situation.
Yeah, it's Ragnarok, but you can actually stop it.
So kind of like a lot of different fantasy stories, like Wheel of Time, technically Stormlight Archive, at least that we've seen. Or at least like Stormlight Archive is going to be an ongoing apocalypse that has just barely started.
Yeah, except the big culmination of the second, the final big enemy is the one-eyed black dragon, who essentially pretty much demolished in Namachi. He had pretty much demolished a lot of heroes, even the strongest familias at the time, the Zeus and Hera familia. Even when they teamed up to take upon this giant beast, he wiped them out without a single thought.
Okay, so he's
And
kind of like Typhon or Baelor from Irish mythology.
essentially, and except that's not the end, though. The final boss is here's the thing. I bring up this point in this third, second to third act, where there's the idea of potions, this special type of potion. It's expensive as all hell, but the kings of old always used to use it. But as their lives were short and they wanted to live as long as possible. One day, an alchemist discovered a potion that could increase the regenerative factor within humans, causing them to essentially survive. I have a lot of different things. I mean, the materials were hard to acquire, but they were valuable, and only the kings of old used these. Some of them have lived to see centuries pass before they passed. Though the oldest king at the time was the oldest recorded king of one of the oldest human kings lived to be 300 with the help of his potion that used the ingredients of troll, orc, and dragon.
Okay.
The issue wasn't that it extended his lifespan, it's just that the potion eventually lost its effect.
Okay.
Because it would be each potion is a very different. It can either how it lasts long and how effective it is depends upon the materials used within it. The final villain uses the blood of the one-eyed black dragon to complete the final ingredient to one of the most powerful potions he could have made. It made him regenerate so fast. And I established this, that I had a character even say this, that the most surefire way to kill somebody who has taken a potion like this is to chop the head off. It used to work all the time, because the thing is that the regenerative factor, it can only deal with injuries that it cannot heal back from. It can deal with injuries, any kind of injuries. You can stab someone through the heart, you'll be fine. But the thing is that it only depended upon how much damage was done to them. Essentially, they can be killed if they cannot keep up with the damage, if the regenerative factor doesn't, if it outpaces how fast it heals. And a surefire way was always kill the brain, so you chop off the head. The characters do just that. They chop his head off. But then here comes the twist. He's still alive.
I'm not dead.
Yep. It's like, 'tis but a scratch.
Just my flesh wound.
And I know how they actually want to end. And this is just the worst part. The potion, it will never wear off. He will live to see 1,000 years pass.
Dang.
Yeah. I do know how he actually dies, though.
Okay.
Since I imagine the most stereotypical place for a final battle to take place in.
Okay. I can think of the typicals, like a wide open plain, maybe some hilly area, maybe like kind of a mountainous area, something like that. Is that where you're?
Nope, you are nowhere. Like, you got somewhat close with the second one, but not what I was thinking.
Okay. What was the second one? Kind of a wide open expanse.
Nope.
I give up. What was it? What are you thinking?
Noble Commando guessed it.
Oh, a volcano.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
That is where the final battle would have takes place. It takes place upon an active It takes place on the volcano. That is how he defeats the main villain.
Alrighty.
But I'm not afraid to tell people this. I'm not afraid to tell you how I end my story. I'm just telling you how I end it. I don't tell you what I do along the way.
No, that's totally fine. Makes sense. You can tell me whatever you want.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I did some things in the world because I did it in the context of, what if this was a game? How would I explain away some things? Like, how would I make people not question it, but give them an adequate enough explanation that they don't need to read a compendium for it, and they can just, all right, then that's a good explanation. Since in the first act, they don't have an army. They don't have any, especially they can't risk telling a capitalist, because who knows how long it'll take for them to even muster a force strong enough to take upon these orders. Who knows how long it'll take? Since the fastest path to travel it depends. You can either be lucky enough to be one of the noblemen that actually afford a flying creature like a griffin. The griffins do exist, but Pegasus is faster. But Pegasus are rare to see and are not exactly commonplace for anybody to use. Not even nobles are able to fly in a Pegasus. And they can spend all the money they'd like. It will run.
Okay.
And that's because I tie it into the fact that only hero, the most notable of heroes, always rode Pegasus. Or at least rode a Pegasus at some point. Or at least some heroes do.
A Pegasi.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's actually what I planned for the main character to get in the third act. He gets a Pegasus.
Okay.
It's essentially to resolve to further resolve his heroic desire to be the light that guides all races throughout the end times, to even the end points.
Nice. I liked it.
Yeah.
So what other how can I what other things are kind of you working on with this story that kind of like you would kind of like to bounce off of me?
Well, I guess okay, what would be your suggestion for magic?
Depends on what you're trying to do. Is it hard, soft, or on the scale, or somewhere between?
Somewhere, but I don't want to go hard because I don't think I can write it, and it'll require way too many rules for me to put up. Soft is soft, and I don't really need to focus upon any perspective, but it comes at the drawback that when I do the Riveria story, her perspective is going to be more important, since she's the one that's doing all of this.
Okay. So, I guess if you could liken it to something,
this is the kicker. Those spells have a chant, and then you have a name that's dependent. You have Riveria is called the Nine Hells, and it's because one of her most powerful spells is a fucking fire spell. Oh, great. Now my pinky's falling asleep.
Okay. So, I think it really kind of depends, because hard magic is useful in terms of creative solving of problems. Soft magic is usually something that you set up early on, and you set the conditions for the win very clearly. Like, that's how Lord of the Rings gets away with soft magic.
It's actually very similar, because if you aren't careful when you cast your spells, you'll suffer an Ignis Fatus, which will cause your spell to backfire. And one of the characters, when he has a magic, and guess what it's called?
I have no idea.
It's a type of spirit.
Invictus?
Nope.
Can't say I can guess. Go for it.
Will-o'-the-wisp.
I see.
Yep. It's a defensive magic that when he casts will automatically cause an Ignis Fatuus. Ignis Fatalis. I forgot what the terminology was. Hang on. Terminology. Okay. Magic.
Is it... It's not necromancy.
No.
It would be...
Ignis Fatuus.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, Will-o'-the-wisp causes that to happen.
Okay. I think that your magic system seems like it's like somewhat hard. Like it's on the gradient between, kind of like how, and you can kind of you have a lot of freedom with this because you have the chant, but you also have like the rules around the chant. You have to get it right or else you will you'll have consequences. So it's not like as hard as say something like Mistborn or Full Metal Alchemist, but it seems as though like it's kind of a hybrid because you have like some conditions on it, but it's not restricted to certain things.
Yeah, let me review. Here's what happens. When the user becomes unable to control the magic power when using magic, Ignis Fatuus occurs, causing it to explode and damage the user. So I think it's when you just can't control the amount of mana you put into it.
Okay.
Like, this is less likely to happen in more experienced mages, since when they come use their spells, it won't misfire as much as it used to. It can occur, but that'll be rare. But I can see it happening in like less experienced mages if they don't control it right. If they put too much, if they put too soft, if they put too little, it won't. Yeah, if you put too little, it won't be effective, and if you put too much, it will backfire.
Okay.
So it's all about achieving balance in between.
That seems relatively like it seems as though like you do have some rules on it.
Rules are not the issue. It's the actual amount of magic that there is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very little because I still have Lefia keep her ability to use all the elven spells as long as she just knows the incantation. And here's the thing, she can also take the spell she's already casting and multiply it by rechanting it again.
Okay.
So it's like the drawback is that it takes longer for her to chant it, and it also draws upon more mana to keep. I do want to, like, one of the spells I use is from Warhammer Fantasy. It's the ability to summon a fucking comet.
Dang, that's some powerful stuff there.
Yeah. I do have, there's I guess the incantation should be, hear my call, all stars in the sky, bring upon to thee the rocks that which shall smite thy foes below thee. Here. It's like, it's a short chant, but it requires a lot of mana, since you are essentially trying to bring down a celestial body.
Okay. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Seems like you got a lot of this stuff figured out.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. I thought I didn't have it all figured out. I guess I could be either original or be creative. Yep, Commodore Cassandra.
Well, kind of like one of the nice thing is when like you're explaining stuff, you'll kind of come up with your own ideas sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I kind of realize, oh, I had this figured out.
I didn't know it, but apparently my brain already did.
Yeah. And are there any other questions that you would like? You have plenty of time. You got half hour to an hour left.
I got an hour.
Okay, cool.
Okay. I guess I'll bounce off this idea with you.
Okay.
Because this is an idea I really liked, and I need to fully realize it. Remember when I sent you a DM around the first time, all the way back earlier August, and I told you about my idea to include worms?
Mm-hmm.
And I brought up the idea that sea worms, and then there was lava worms, and then there was a similar cousin all the way up to the north that breathed a kind of ice, that breathed ice, and it actually could fly. And I brought up the idea of using the drakes, and you said that the drakes were actually just wingless dragons. It's like, right. When it comes to the drakes, I was thinking somewhere close to something similar to the Fellow Beast in Lord of the Rings and all the drakes in Middle Earth. Since one of the abilities you could pull off in Shadow of War is to summon a drake of your own. And you can fly with it. You fly now.
They fly now?
They fly now. When it comes to that, it's like, I would say it's a frost drake. But it's not. Okay, I once talked about a drake once, and I got a drake meme.
Ah, Drake the Duelist, you're getting referenced in Wisewell's book. You should be proud.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it and send to you. It's just so yeah.
When it comes to Drakes, me, where? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I think I can find drakes right quick. Let me send you the picture for it. Yeah, drake.
For Shadow of War, I've seen, or for something else, because I've seen Drakes in Shadow of War.
Yeah, the Shadow of War drakes, they're just like, they can fly, they can breathe fire, but you could tell if there's a difference between them and dragons.
Because dragons are cartoonishly large in Tolkien's universe.
Yeah. And Celebrimbor has a comeback that it's a drake scale. Dragons wouldn't let their scales get like this. It's so fair. Like, that's the meme. You got to show the chat. It's just when I was on a. Yeah.
Okay.
That's like, I knew I should have saw this coming.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, let me post it. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
It's like, I knew when I said drakes, I knew I was inevitably going to get that. It's like, I just knew subconsciously in the back of my mind. It's like, I'm going to get a drake meme.
Oh, that's funny. I like it. That's high quality memeage right there.
Yeah. Yeah, he really put it to love. Yeah, he really. It's just, I didn't expect it here. It's like, I think it was a Lord of the Rings related topic that we were talking about. I brought up drakes. Since we were referring to the beast at the Night School ride, and I said drakes because I thought that's what they were called. I know they're called fell beasts, but but I thought they were still called technically drakes. They're just referred to as the fell beasts since they're not of the living. Okay, that actually may be a good concept since you know there's between immortality and undeath, right? Done?
Yep, I'm still here.
You know the difference between immortality and the undeath?
Yes. Basically, if you're dead, like, usually undead just means, like, you come back from the dead. Immortality just means you continue being alive.
Yeah. You could still die, but you just won't stay it that way. I think that's
kind of the difference between like kind of a Mire wizard like Gandalf and a Lich.
yeah. A lich is of the undead. Gandalf's just the immortal. No, elves are okay. I still keep some senses that the elves do live long, since the high elf character is actually close to 100 years old. But here's the shocker twist: they can still die.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, and her line, the line of Alf, I give it significance that the line of Alf was actually goes back that they're actually the first of the Elven kings and queens. But the rule of the last king didn't last very long. And essentially because the heir at the time wasn't fit to take the throne, the advisor at the time, who I guess significance to another Elven character, that's just it that the houses at least be allowed some freedom of control. And then when the new king came in charge, they had some iron control, but then his reign wasn't exactly the most prosperous, and then more power slowly giving away to them. And then we came to the next one, it's like, and then they'll say a civil war happened. They all say that they're going to betray the king and their family. The Elf might still be alive, but they were not seen as the rightful kings anymore. But when it came down to it, and the houses did it, it's like, okay, time for me to be king. No, I thought I was going to rule. No, I thought I was going to come in this, and we all agreed that I was going to take the... I ironically call the elfin crown the crown of stars.
Okay. So this is kind of like Rhaenyra and Aegon II in the Dance of the Dragons kind of situation. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's just they didn't figure out who would be the next ruler. And he'll say that's what actually caused them to start to stagnate. It all started because they didn't have a proper ruler. They just had people people in charge, but not a definitive person leading them.
Drake actually had a good question. So, would that be the case?
It's the latter. Okay. Ages very slowly, will someday die.
Okay.
Like I say, dying immortality does not exist. It is a very hard thing to achieve, if anything. Because that's what the potion the main villain takes that the final villain takes does. It brings them as close as it can to immortality.
Okay.
It essentially is Highlander immortality in that case, Drake. It does not age, but can be killed. It just, in this case, it is extremely hard to kill. Since I essentially state that the potion is an everlasting potion, and that means that it will not wear off.
Nice.
It will only wear off upon his death, and if he becomes strong enough, death trying to kill him will be like essentially trying to shoot yourself in the heart and bring yourself back to life.
Okay.
You don't come back from that.
Okay.
Okay, so for the idea of the worms, which is what originally I was trying to talk about, I have Finn, Finn in the show is Finn and Don Machi is the captain of the Loki Familia. However, I have him be separate from them he is still a captain. He still leads, just not for a Familia. He leads a seafaring, like essentially mercenaries. He leads leads mercenaries, but with morals.
Okay.
And their names are the Kelpies. I want you to guess where I took the inspiration to Kelp. And I want you to take a guess what I mean when I refer to Kelpies.
I have heard the name Kelpie in Irish mythology.
Yes. The undeads, the mythical seahorses.
Yeah, kind of like the water horse in the water horse movie. That's kind of like the Loch Ness monster, as well as like the water horse in Percy Jackson / Greek mythology.
Yeah. It's the Finn Dimna is Irish. Yeah, I still keep it that his backstory is that he's a. They call the halflings prooms, but it's spelt differently. This is how it's spelt.
Okay. Palom. Okay.
That's what I also thought it was, but it's actually pronounced proom.
Oh. Kind of like how you would pronounce Catronia is just Catrona.
Yeah. And at first my friend suggested that maybe it was a slur that was used against him, but no, I don't think it was. But here's the thing. Never has a character ever referred to them as proom with a very, never in, not in a manner of, and hey, look, there's that proom over there, like in a condescending tone. Like there's been, like the Lily, she's a proom, and she was, but it was mostly his insult, but it was fall, but the insult beforehand was, you filthy proom. Like it referred to her by her race, they called her filthy. Like an insult.
Yeah.
But never was proom used in a demeaning way, unless it was in conjunction with unless it was just referring to their race. And the Perums are essentially the weakest of all races, like even weaker than humans.
Okay.
And Finn's trying to bring at least hope into the Perum race by actually being who he is. Yes, and he's quite formidable. He's a sea captain first and foremost, so I first like, great, I can't let him keep a spear, because spears are horrible in ship-to-ship combat. So it's like, you're going to be in close quarter, you're going to be all close up, you're not going to have a lot of space between you and the enemy.
So it's knives.
That's what I was going with initially, until I thought, short spears.
Kind of like how the Aiel fight in Wheel of Time.
Yeah, it's a spear that he holds that isn't very long, so he can use it without any impediment. And he has two spears. He has one he uses when he has space, and he has the other one he's using in most of the time when it's ship to ship. Which I think is another thing. I am trying to figure out the ships. Just
so
because.
So the spear's kind of like this.
Unironically, you actually. I didn't know what their spears used to look like, but yeah, you unironically fit the bill with that.
Mm-hmm.
You knew exactly what I was thinking. A short spear that wouldn't cause much of mobility, but still had the effectiveness of a spear.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Also, I think also part of it was on the Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Spear of Leonidas.
Okay.
Because I thought I was actually.
You can share your screen. Well, basically, like, what you can do is just you start sharing your screen, and then I just bring your screen into the stream.
I'm almost afraid that if I turn that on, it's going to crash on me.
I see.
Here, this is why I think this is what I'm referring to. So if it crashes, I'll be right back.
Alrighty.
Don't show these tips again, or I'll punch this site.
Yeah, StreamYard is sometimes annoying, but it's the best I can do since OBS does not fit on my computer. Okay.
Yeah, somewhere along like this length.
Okay.
I guess I could actually. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that worked out well.
Yeah.
No crashes.
But the thing I'm more or less. Okay. since I think you brought this up during I think it was a Arcanum stream or maybe the Monster stream, and you talked about monsters and how we use them. You know, you get creative so you can figure out what materials you can make from them. Finn states that that a well-established sea company would at least have the standard gear be made out of sea worm material. Okay. And as you go up, you hunt bigger and bigger sea monsters. You make some badass material out of it.
You're basically video game crafting with.
Yeah, believe it or not, since I have that in order to forge weapons for essentially their mixed match the civilians who want to fight the orcs and pretty much give back revenge for destroying a big city, destroying the biggest town in the area. They raid goblins at first, take their shitty ass swords, smelt that down, and then reforge it into a better blade. And I imply that it's not as if they're going to run out anytime soon. They will always be forming. The thing about orcs and goblins is that even when it seems as if you think you're rid of them, they'll come back eventually. Even if they're really nothing but shit sticks to do it.
I see.
And I'm referring to sticks that are actually shit. I mean, they are like I think like that there's even records of the.
They're punji sticks where you like a booby trap where you smear fecal matter on something in order to cause disease.
Yeah, I think I have Gareth remarked that one of the dwarf that they went siege an orc fortress that had used dung as a building material. It wasn't a very pleasant siege.
Oh dear, sounds terrible.
Yeah, since it's like somehow defying all minors of logic, you'd think they would be able to set it on fire, and they tried doing that, except it didn't work.
Dang.
Yeah, it's because I go with a bit of the orc horde mentality from Warhammer. Essentially, if they think it is true, then it's true. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Okay.
And our mentality is dung is not flammable. And it works. It's like reality bends itself over for them when they demand it does.
Okay.
Anything painted red goes faster. It goes faster if it's painted red.
Okay. So you said something about like you had a question about ships earlier.
Yeah.
So what were you thinking?
Okay.
The ships.
One of the side stories has Belle, Wolf, and Lily in year 3 go off to one of the ancient to an abandoned colony of what's rumored to be actually a civilization of people who were strange, and they discover a lot of old designs. Right, they managed, right, and one of the designs is actually for a giant rotating cannon. That was designed to essentially shoot oversized crossbow bolts, essentially a repeating ballista.
Okay.
And here's the thing. In Finn's side story, which is actually the only side story that takes place over the first 4 years, as he's effectively kelpied into a better recognized mercenary organization, the shipwright tells him, no, we can't fit this on any of our ships, not even yours, which was very special. We have to build another one from the ground up, reformat the design in order to even fit this thing on it. So, like, the idea of the ship designs I'm going for is something similar to the Game of Thrones long ships.
Okay.
But with a bit of mixture of
not like stupid, not like in season 8.
Yeah, no, like the ballistas aren't like they don't have quick fire ballistas.
Or if you have quick fire ballistas, you have an actual logical explanation for why they're quick fire ballistas.
Yeah, since one of the anime state of proves that they're really good craftsmen. they're really good at taking stuff and then being able to somehow mechanically work around it. And there's this thing called a little ballista, which are crossbow used by the Prooms. Since it's small and it works as well as a size crossbow, and it's adapted to take into account they're not so great physical strength. Essentially, they were able to like adapt to ballista, and they essentially they drew up designs once for a ballista to be mounted onto a ship, and it was the issue was that not a lot of ships were designed to be carrying something of that size. No matter how hard they worked it down, it's like that. It's going to be like a few ships that have that thing mounted. Finn takes note of this and goes, "Fuck it, have the ships be designed with a philosophy of being able to mount anything on it and yet still be effective, since there's a special attribute to whoever ship it is. If it's a ship that's built by elves, it's very fast. It has this thing called elven sails, where no matter which direction the wind's blowing, it's going to be blowing at normal speed. But if it's blowing in their favor, it goes double that. Like the wind is not affected negatively. The drawback is that all elven ships are they're not as well made. They're not very durable. Unless they're dark elf ships, in which case they spared no expense. It's in order to be raiding like hell.
I see.
Yeah. Dwarven ships are slow as a fucking slug. But they could take a hell of a beating.
I see.
Human ships are all-rounders. They're not faster and they're not stronger. They're average on that scale. And Finn's ship is special since it has the attributes of one of each ship. It has the jack of all trades human design to be more utilitarian, to be able to fit onto anything without being more negatively effective. It has a strong dwarven hold that can take a lot of punishment, and it has the elven sails to negate all the speed penalties. Essentially, you wanted it to be the perfect ship. But when he is told, you can't mount this fucking thing, it is too heavy for even your ship to handle. And it's like, oh crap. Like, it's still something new. Yeah. It's still the best personal ship, but it's not like, it isn't without its flaws and drawbacks. Okay. Yeah, I think I could go with the long ship designs, just not as retarded as the long ships were used. Like they can't do they can't teleport halfway across Westeros with a blink of an eye. Yeah, it's like they still have to contend with wind blows. Finn's ship is the only one that doesn't, since by the time that they hire him out in the first act to ferry some of the werewolf tribes from the northern Frostlands to be used as /costs. Usually there will be a conflict of better and fewer versus cheaper hordes. That will be top. Okay, that is a pretty good point up. I think that there is an overhauling philosophy with everything. Do I go for the cheaper but more effective in number unit, or do I go for the more expensive but still as effective, but is capable of doing the workload of 3 of these guys at the cost of 1?
Mm-hmm. It's always the give and take thing.
Yeah, that's exactly what Finn's trying to not go for. He's trying to go for one that strikes the balance between essentially he's trying to strike near utilitarian sort of thing. It does everything and nothing at the same time. Like if it doesn't need anything more, then it won't be much of a drawback. Then Yeah. When it comes to orc ships, they go for cheap. They just go for slaps of pieces of wood onto something, and we call it a ship. Surprisingly, despite their dingy as all hell design, and despite their dingy as all hell design, they're actually pretty effective. If I even have a funny little quote from an orc shipbuilder. This thing I call a battleship.
I like it.
Yep.
Almost is like a "Hey, you guys" from the Goonies. I still need to watch that.
In fact, I even bring in the freaking Warhammer 40k orcs, the Rock.
The Wag.
Here's the thing. Yeah, the Rock is essentially they hollowed out a giant asteroid, slapped some thrusters onto that, and then just filled it with as much guns as possible and calls it a day. It's like it defies all manners of logic. Yes, it's heartwarming. In this case, they literally took a piece of random sea land and it somehow managed to make it sail. It defies all matters of logic and reasoning. Even there, like, what the fuck? How is that even sailing? It's like it's moving somehow, some way. It's not ever explained why. Nobody can salvage it to figure out why it does, how it's even sailing. Because the second it's defeated, it's just destroyed. It just starts sinking like nobody's business.
We actually have a guest coming in. Please welcome to the stream.
Hello.
Yep. That was a surprise.
I'm sorry about that.
I
managed to take it.
But a welcome
one.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes, Drake.
So we are talking about boats.
Yep. And I brought up the topic of why orc books just make no sense, but yet seemingly still work. So it's like went for a mix between Warhammer orcs, in which they have the weird mentality that if they say it works, then it does, no questions asked. But I also go for Lord of the Rings style of orcs in the sense that they have an actual structure that is just based off let's fight each other to doing something.
Yeah, the orc boats are meant to run into things. They're covered in spikes and sharp bits and blades.
Unless it's a giant piece of rock that's somehow sailing, then it's just whatever. And it's just what the fuck? How?
It's not a boulder. It's a rock.
It's like it's a bit of funny moments, and it's like I always make fun of that. Even I recognize this and say that's ridiculous, but yet I like it. Every character comments on how it defies all matters of logic and reasoning, yet it still works.
It could be something as simple as they built a giant slingshot, put a flat stone in it, and it's just skipping across the water to its destination. That's the first thing I thought of. It's just
you never question how these things are supposed to work. You just go along with it because nobody else bothers trying to. The last person who tried to think of why it does actually have their head explode.
It's orc magic.
Yeah, it's unironically orc magic. Orc magic makes it work. But yeah, the orcs still fight amongst themselves, but more or less for power and entertainment, and sometimes because they got bored. You know, just fuck it, they're Warhammer orcs now. But they actually have a military instead of just, I take this rock, I smash it against this metal thing, and now it's a blade.
I love it.
Yeah. It's like, orcs can make weapons en masse, but they're not the best weapons.
They will get the job done, however.
Yep, in fact, getting orc weapons actually yields more gain for smelting it down and using it for, and then forging new swords when they smelt it down ore. It just essentially is, we just reheat it, and then use the leftovers to then make, we smelt it back down, and then we make actual swords that isn't absolute garbage compared to these things.
Cool.
You know, and like the entire purpose is we need to build an army strong enough to actually take them down. Ryu goes off and tries to enlist the help of the nearby wood elves in order to see if they can even pitch in. They didn't discuss the fact that the reason why is that they have their own problems. They have monsters have been recently moving in throughout their forests. They have been taken to torching down some of the trees nearby. They need to kill it. And I guess they have something unfound, unholy going on in the world. They don't know where, but they would like. But in return, she does get some of the. Okay, I don't know what to call their soldiers, but I'm going to go with Wild Walkers, since it's another name for Wood Elves. It's just another way to.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I immediately get the idea of like this. It's like a archer strike force sort of deal instead of like the traditional like soldiers lined up shoulder by shoulder with shield and spear. It's like more like a marine group hidden in the trees while like another group of soldiers blunders in. But then suddenly the camouflage has eyes, and there's an elf with a bow.
Yeah, they're mostly ranged units, and some of them are just straight up assassins.
Wild Walkers works perfect.
They're still called Wood Elves, but the type of effect Ryu is a Wood Elf assassin. I go for her layer design. It's based off Altariel's design, because as much as I hate Altariel's an actual character and how she's horrid, her design is actually something I did like.
All right.
Like that. I am aware, Drake, that if they so much as stray away from even the slightest thing, like if they bother to research new technology, it's seen as heresy. But at least we know why it works, and not because they said it did.
All right. It sounds like you got a pretty interesting fantasy world here.
Yeah.
It's like Danmachi is still like the basic setup, but it's just I'm not using the world of Danmachi. I'm literally having to construct an entirely different place with some sets of different events, and a completely different context in mind, and then make it fit together. Because I hate myself, apparently. That's like I'm not literally forging a world, because that's actually a step up from world. That's actually a step up from there's world forging and there's world building. World building actually they're all similar concepts. You construct an entirely different world. But with forging, you have to go out of your way to make your own world. In a lot of ways, you have to be as original as possible.
I see.
At least that's my point of view. So if I come off as pretentious by saying that, please say so.
No, seems fine. And to me.
No, if that's how you like to write your stories.
I don't.
Everybody's creative process is different.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you got to have some measure of hefty measure of confidence in order to put yourself out there and write.
I think I'm actually going through that haze where it's just I don't know if I should continue writing. But I know I want to continue writing. I have to push myself through in order to eventually get there.
I feel you.
Yeah, motivation can be very hard sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I barely have anyone even comment on my stories. I just have people favorite, I have people read it, but it's like I barely have anyone leave a comment that says, "Hey, this is actually pretty good stuff."
Yeah, I just try and write as much as I can and pay to advertise as on Amazon. I just barely started that since like now that I've got like almost double digits. in terms of like stuff that I put out, I can just market for like $3 a day or something. So
At least but the Rare Showcase did did give me some motivation. I received good feedback from my story of War Shadows.
Excellent.
yeah,
That's like that was a big upheaval to me.
nice. That's good.
Yeah, I'd like to think that it's like I never thought I was immediately good off the bat, and I didn't think I was any good because I barely received any feedback that told me otherwise. It's like, okay, so I must just be in the middle then. I'm not bad by any comparison since I've seen worse, but I'm not good because I have seen better.
I think that ultimately it's just like, yeah, sometimes you just like there's a lot of places where it's just like feedback is really hard to come by. I know for me, like I like got like a number. I think the first book that I ever wrote, well, first book that I ever published, Lost Legion, has the most reviews out of any of my books, and about 8. Thankfully, like the aggregate score is like 4 out of 5, with the majority of the reviews actually being 5s, which I'm like, oh, that's cool, thank you. But then like I've only gotten like one or so reviews on um so like thankfully most of them have been positive, but it's like I don't get much of it, so I can't really do much.
I think actually part of my issue is that on Wattpad, where your story sinks or swim can be entirely based upon your tags. Yeah, I've noticed this because I did a story idea. It was Joan Arc Red Hood. Same amount of chapters, but the tags were kind of missing. Then I see a similar story using that similar concept. Same story design, same amount of chapters I do have, but it had more views and favorites than I did. It's like, what was I not being specific on like tags or anything, or what was it?
Yeah, it seems as though like the tags are the things that really like affect things.
It's like it still screws me over because I put like up to 20 tags onto my Tom Clancy fanfic. Barely anyone reads it. It's like that's so it's like I don't know what the fuck is up with Wattpad. I don't know if it's because not many people are interested in my stories. I don't particularly blame them. My most read story is my first one, and I've grown to really kind of realize that it's just my story is just not much. And it's like I don't like it still goes off the concepts that a lot of people find popular within the fandom of RWBY. It's a very popular concept to do. I went with what was popular and I got the most reception from it. But if I did something different and I barely got anything from it. It's like it seems as if you have to go with what's popular and trending in order to get any reception. But if you decide to deviate slightly and then decide to do something else, you'll find that it's going to be becoming increasingly hard for people to find out where you are. And I don't attribute this to my follower count either. It's like, I think people would still be able to find my story regardless of how many followers I have. Since I had fairly found a lot of followers because of my first story. So I don't attribute it to my follower size because people still found my story. They read my story. Some of them have taken to following me. So it's like, what isn't me then? What is the problem then? And now on the stream, I just realized it's what's popular you have to do.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is very, very true. Following trends, trying to work the algorithm to your favor. It's true on basically any site that you're trying to build a fandom on. The best way to do it is just talk about what's going on in whatever it is you're talking about.
So it's like, I guess my story's just doomed to bear. Here's the thing: it's like I don't want to follow that trend. I don't want to follow what's popular unless I really want to. Even if it's only because I thought I could put my own spin on the same thing. it's like, so then it's like, so I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm doomed to just being the Abyss forever, because I'm not going to. I really need to rewrite my entire first story because I hated the idea I went with. The same story idea that a lot of people did that I used to be a subscriber of. But now I just don't look at it anymore because I realize it's against character. It's the one thing I hate the most. And that's character assassination. It's like, I'm okay with reading it because it's fan fiction, I get that, and I can get some enjoyment out of these stories, but I don't think I personally can bring myself to write it ever. And now it's like, I can't write it anymore because then I end up burning bridges in order to make it happen. I don't ever want to go through that. So it's like, my first story has up to 20 reads. 20,000 reads. It's because I went with the popular concept and the popular story idea. Line out all the gay/fic tags. If people realize that you lied, they'll be halfway in. I like to be honest and straightforward. I'm going to be honest and straightforward with my description. So if you don't like description, then don't even bother. It's like, okay. One of my recently published stories was a tactician arc. And it, surprisingly, despite the fact that I only ever did the one chapter on it, I get up to 100 reads. So it's like, it's clear that there is an audience out there. And if I do the right tags, I can draw them in. But if I just bloat my story with a bunch of tags and nobody can match up, then it's just... Even when I did it for my Tom Clancy fanfic, it barely got traction. So it's like, I might as well continue. So eventually the day will come when I gain enough traction. So I could then just do what I like. So it's like, I'm screwed either way. It's just that in the long run, I might as well just go with, don't do what's popular, just do what I like to think would be right for a story.
Yeah, write whatever is you want to write, I say. But try to find yourself a good network to try to get yourself out there. Just keep persistent, keep going, keep trying. Eventually, something will hopefully catch.
That's why I got my fanfic.net account. So that I can just reach out to a bigger audience. Because I know that more people are more likely to stumble upon your... So what I've seen, people are more likely to stumble upon your story on fanfic.net than on Wattpad. My issues is with how Wattpad's writing actually works. And one of my stories got taken down because I had a singular swear in the description. And I want you to guess which one... I want you to guess from a large library of swears what it was.
Probably something childish.
Starts with an F. The last word is K. Fuck. Yep, my story got taken down because it had the word fuck in it. It's like, that's petty as... It's like, that's... It's like, oh, so I just can't do curse words. All right, then. Yeah, so then it's like... And it doesn't help that fanfic.net has a Twitter character limit as a fucking summary.
It has a story group has a character limit?
No joke here. Let me go check. Let me be sure right quick, because I know it's a very ridiculously small character limit. Let me go into my... Okay?
Why would a story writing website have a character limit?
Right, and if I go into... Let me go check my stories. And here's the character... And I'm going to go into description. You are allowed up to 300 and 84 characters. Including spaces. Yes, you are only allowed 384 characters.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
Why 384 characters? That's
No, Drake, you could, if it's in a story, you can drop all the F-bombs you want. If it's in the description, it's getting taken down. Like if it's in this, yeah, you have 384 characters as your limit in fanfic.net. So it's like, well, that's stupid because I'd like to give it a laugh. It's like, so you don't want me to describe what's going on in my story. You just want me to, it's like, I get being concise, but the thing is, I'd like to warn people what the absolute hell they're getting into. And you're actively forcing me to boil it down to just whatever the fuck is going on. It's like, I damn near pushed it with Beast Wars and Elementa. It's like, I have 4 characters left because I have to condense that on. It's God forbid you be allowed to give a description of what your story is about. You have to confine with our 384 character limit. And after like thousands of characters on Wattpad's description, it's like, I have no issue there because I'm allowed to get into it. So it's like, why must I go for your specific... This is why 99% dominated by stupid slash face and the author's very character screwing. Your swimming gets a very old river. Yep.
yeah.
It's like, you can't type in Naruto fan, you get Sasunaru, you get all kinds of slash, and it's ridiculous, it's stupid, and I can't... It's like, oh god, why is that? What happened to just writing to write with whatever you like? It's like, after a certain point, you need to just start... If you want to get anywhere, you better start chilling the fuck out. So that's like, that's why I came to philosophy. I don't give 2 shits. I could be the most unpopular person on the entire platform. As long as I just write what the fuck I like, I'm fine.
Yeah, just write what you want. Hopefully, you find a group of people who enjoy it, and if you're good, you will.
That's actually why I'm planning on uploading a Don Mounty fanfic on Wattpad, because it's like, I would do it there because it's more or less I could do it on there because I'd like to use images, and Wattpad allows you to use images in your story.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, you can even link full videos in there, so you're like allowed to use outside media in your stories. So you don't have to tell people, look up this specific song for context. Like, nope, here's a song right here. And then it's like, all right, then I'm good with that. And there's also the fact that fanfic.net had like a manual saving system, so it made writing documents a pain, since it meant I had to always ensure that it was saving every few minutes. Otherwise, if it gets stuck in reloading hell, then all my progress will be lost. It's like, I can write up to 2,000 words, and then if I forget to save it, that's gone. Because God forbid you be allowed some sense of safety, knowing that even if at the worst of times, that your progress is saved.
Yeah, nothing quite like losing all your progress.
Yep. And I know what it felt like, because for a Fire Emblem Fates story idea I had written up to 1,000 words, but because I forgot to save it, that was deleted. Like, I'm pretty sure I'm not sure it was 1,000 words. I think I've written up to 100 words, like well over maybe like 500 words, and then I forgot to save it, and I was like, well, fuck me, it's gone now. So it's like, now, and then it's like, oh, now I get why my friend likes to write in Google Docs. It's more safe. You've got the security of, if you get screwed over and somehow something happens, your progress will be saved. This went from a tutoring session to just talk about why fan fiction is kind of hard to get in. Why you're not likely to find why I find difficult with fan fiction. And just writing in general, if you don't follow what's popular, you're guaranteed to hit success. Do something else, you're gonna find it hard to get through anything, buddy.
It's not necessarily guaranteed success if you just follow the crowd, because then you're dealing with a crowded market as well. But the reason why the market is crowded is because there's an audience for it. You gotta find that sweet spot of what you're doing what you love, but you're managing to find an audience who enjoys it.
I'd rather do what I love and just let the audience find it upon themselves, and then figure out why I love to write that. It's like, oh, I wonder why he doesn't write. It's like, oh, I wonder why he has I wonder why he has this I wonder why he has this Fire and Fate Stay Night fanfic. It's like, oh, I see why. It's like I always think of the weirdest story ideas that most people would just not do. It's like, you could do this, you could pull it off, it could fit. Why don't you just fucking do this? It's like, did I think of? I watched Magi, and then I got Fire and Magi. That's a good story idea. I was like, nobody did it yet. It's like, if I could think of it, I'm pretty sure others would have thought of it and also have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Follow the herd, then you're bound to...
audience that will force you to keep following the herd, because that's what they're there for.
In which case, I guess all my followers only did it because I wrote that one Ruby fanfic.
They probably expected more Ruby if that's what you were writing then.
And guess what? I don't want to write it anymore. I don't want to write any more Ruby fanfic. I don't think I ever want to touch my olds. I said I was going to rewrite my first story, but it's like, I don't think I could.
Well, then, nope.
Right.
It's like, I might as well just announce it. Hey, I know I said I was going to rewrite my first fanfic, but I don't think I can anymore. I'm just going to... I don't know if I can just put myself to do what I'd like. I'd like to write what I want to... that I like to write, but I don't think I can do a specific story because, well, I write this. It's like, I have other things I'd like to write. I like to go outside my own fandom and write something about things I love to write about. It's like, sometimes I don't think I can ever write a fanfic set in a universe I truly, dearly think you probably shouldn't touch. Like, I don't think I could ever write a Halo fanfic for the very reason that you'd be doing a lot of things. It's like you're going to mess around with a story that I think you're going to make worse by writing it. It's like there are interesting spins, but you've kind of made the story feel a lot... lacking a lot of things that made me be interested in Halo. Like, nothing against people who write Halo fanfics, because I'm pretty sure there are really good Halo fanfics that are... when it comes down to that, it's like, I don't think you should it's like, when it comes to that, it's like... it's like, there's just some fanfics which I think you should just don't... there are some things I just would not touch in a fandom. I don't want to touch Halo. I don't want to touch specific groups, simply because I don't think I don't want to.
All right. We're about 5 minutes away from the cutoff line. Was there anything you wanted to brainstorm or just bounce off of me?
Okay, I guess technology would be a good point. So it's very fancy, like, but I don't plan to include guns. Like, that was the number one definitive rule I established. 0 guns. it's going to make ship combat very weird, and that's because it's like there's no guns, so how would it work out?
All right.
Do you have any suggestions for how the ship combat would go naturally without the implementation of firearms?
Is there magic in this setting?
Yes, there's magic, but you're going to be kind of hard. But that's going to be kind of hard to pull off. Since, there's very few lores. There's very few people who practice the lore that is best for ship combat.
Okay. Well, typically in historical, even before there were the invention of gunpowder and it becoming massively used, ships still fought one-on-one. It's just a row of archers just firing at one another.
Also, grappling hooks.
Grappling hooks essentially capturing the ship was more the goal than actually destroying it.
Yeah, basically it was like Rome ultimately won the battle with Carthage because they trained their troops on sea, on boats, and fought ship to ship with grappling so that they could use their military advantage to fight ship to ship as if it were a land battle.
Okay, Drake, what I mean by define guns is anything that shoots black powder.
Yeah.
So
it's
it
like,
could be like crossbows.
I'll use bombs. That's like old timey, like old fucking just stick a fire thing in there and toss it bomb.
Oh, well, if there's bombs, it's just a small catapult would do. Essentially, it's just a slingshot.
I could also go like I did bring up the idea of the mini ballistas attached on the ships, so it's like there's still a thing.
Still a thing.
And then I also bring up the crossbows, and that could be effective, including how Finn's entire structure of the Kelpies are organized. It's like pretty much everyone's all permitted. Pretty much everyone's required to carry a weapon. Is required to at least carry a close range weapon on them, but otherwise they're mostly tuned to a certain role. Well, if they have something that defines them outside this role, then they're pretty much then they're allowed to just be outside of their own norm. Like typically, all the elves are archers. They wield short bows and they can be on the ship. They're really good at shipping on. Sometimes when they raid the pirate coves, they have them alongside for support. The Proms are usually crossbow shooters, and ever since they got their hands on some of the Dark Elf repeater crossbows, they've taken to slowly integrate that. If Amazons drilled scimitars. So they wield these massive fucking blades that you can chop one's head off with a single swing if she was strong enough. And the thing was that originally I was going to have all the groups be named after kind of a sea beast. Like a mythical sea beast based upon the mythology they're from. Like
Jormungandr.
Huh?
The Midgard serpent, Jormungand, or
Jormungandr.
Okay, maybe not Loki's children.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, Bet in the side story. I mean, Bet's pretty much Ben Don Machi's pretty much. He has two nicknames, and they're both just alternate names for Fenrir. And the werewolf tribes in the north are occupied with like the werewolf tribes are there's the werewolf tribes like in the process. There's the werewolf tribes. There's the troll gatherings, and then there's just the monsters that want to kill you. It's like I state that frost trolls are kind of slow, but they are nice. But they're generally nice. They just don't make them angry, otherwise they actually may bake you a stew. They're really good cooks.
Okay.
Good cooks are expensive at sea.
Alrighty.
Sometimes they even do it for you, and it's like, and when the bad guys are hunting monsters, he's pretty much, fuck it, I want to hunt the biggest shit there is here. Let's go kill it. And they kill a giant. And after some deaths, of course, they managed to kill a frost giant.
Okay.
Which are not to be mistaken for trolls. It's a giant humanoid. It's a giant human, but it just has no other purpose but to see you smash it with its foot.
Alrighty. Well, is there anything else? Because
surprisingly, I had like over 20 questions I wanted to ask you and see if you could help me develop. And it's like, now as I talked about it, it's like I slowly came to my own conclusions on what I want to do with it.
Nice.
Ironically, I tutored myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it sometimes helps to just have somebody to just bounce off of and say, yeah, you're on the right track.
I generally like to think most of my ideas are just crazy, so when I say them out loud to others, and then I think about it as I say it to others, I then see where I can make the tissue to make them work. I'm still going with the orc tribes don't really disappear, they just go into hiding for a bit before they come out to destroy you again.
Bugs under a rock.
Wow.
You know, that's actually going to be like a small little gag chapter. You know, like a little fun segment, like a bonus chapter, and it's like there's just an orc that's posing as a tree, and it's a really crappy disguise, but everyone just ignores it because they think it's just an ugly tree.
I love this orc magic.
I like
It doesn't actually work. People just believe it does, and the power of belief allows it to.
Yeah, and believe it or not, the orc actually cries. It's like a singular tear rolls down his cheeks.
I'm so lonely.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions, I have to say one last thing to the chat.
Go! Holy shit. Okay, we're going.